kind of look like Aang a little bit.
You do.
Or is it pronounced Ong?
I smell a Halloween costume coming on.
Oh boy.
You guys, it's the end of the day and we're talking about tunnels.
We got some interesting stories here. I do mention a place I mentioned before, but a really interesting story. One of the best, I gotta tell you. We begin our underground journey in China with a series of underground tunnels found in the ancient city of Houchengzui. In 2023, archaeologists were doing excavations in the 4,300-year-old stone city of Houchengzui in Inner Mongolia when they came across a series of tunnels built beneath the city. The city was heavily fortified. In fact, it's ranked as one of the most tightly defended Inner Mongolian stone cities discovered to date. It was almost like the city from Attack on Titan. The inner city was surrounded by an outer city for defense, and outside of that, a walled gatehouse, so a triple defense system. There were also tons of terraces and moats. You were not getting in here easily, and if all defenses did fail, they had the recently discovered underground tunnels to retreat to as well. There were 6 intersecting tunnels about 5 to 20 feet deep that ran under the entire city. Not only would they have been used for extra security, but they also doubled as underground transportation systems connecting various parts of the city, kind of like what we have with underground walkways in cities today.
Next up, we have the newly discovered ancient tunnels of the Pyramid of the Moon, the second largest building in Teotihuacan, found earlier this year in Mexico. The tunnels have remained a secret for nearly 2,000 years, making their discovery groundbreaking in the fields of both history and archaeology. The tunnels are accessible via secret passageway in Plaza de la Luna, located in the center of the city. The passageway is buried 33 feet deep and it extends from the plaza all the way to the Pyramid of the Moon, where it turns into an elaborate labyrinth of underground tunnels. While no one has been able to enter the tunnels yet, modern technology has given researchers the ability to begin mapping their new discovery. It is believed that the Pyramid of the Moon in its heyday was likely used for religious ceremonies that would have included human sacrifice, which has brought researchers to the conclusion that the tunnels might possibly represent the underworld in accordance with the ancient Teotihuacan belief system. As I said, the tunnels are yet to be explored, but teams are hoping to check them out in the near future to see if they can uncover any hidden artifacts that might give them a more in-depth look into the ancient civilizations of Mexico. So keep an eye on it.
Next up, we have Derinkuyu, a massive ancient underground city in Turkey. Now, I talked about this place just recently, but what I didn't know was how this place was discovered, and the story is remarkable. Let's just imagine for a moment that you're doing some reno work in your basement and you gotta knock down a wall, but after taking your sledgehammer to it, you notice a small hole. One of your chickens runs into the hole and you chase after it and you realize, holy crap, this isn't just a small hole, there's actually a full-on tunnel in here. And the tunnel leads to another tunnel and another until you realize that there is actually an entire underground city right behind your basement. I mean, Narnia? No, it's actually how Derinkuyu was discovered in 1963. This story is true. The 280 feet multi-level complex was built in the 8th to 7th centuries BCE and was once the home of around 20,000 people. Imagine just finding that in your basement. It's nuts. One of the coolest stories I think I've ever read about.
Next up, we have a 4,300-foot-long tunnel discovered in 2022 in Egypt, underneath the temple of TapOsiris Magna that might just possibly contain the final resting place of the final ruler of Egypt, Cleopatra. Yes, like, James, I have mentioned this one before, but it's frickin' Cleopatra. I can't not talk about it. The temple where the tunnels are located is one dedicated to the god Osiris, also known as the god of the underworld, who symbolizes death, resurrection, and the cycle of Nile floods, which were necessary for agricultural success in Egypt in ancient times. Basically, it's the perfect place for Cleopatra to have been buried. As I said, the tunnels are almost 4,500 feet long. They are also 6.5 feet tall and reside roughly 43 feet underground at the temple, located just west of the ancient city of Alexandria, where Cleopatra is believed to have been buried alongside her lover Mark Antony. I mean, you've heard of all roads lead to Rome, but in this case I feel like all tunnels in Osiris's temple will eventually lead to Cleopatra. Statues and ceramics dating back to Cleopatra's time period have also been found in the tunnel, only furthering my personal belief and the belief of many that the tunnels do in fact contain her tomb. And I think sometime this year, maybe next year, we will find out the answer, because I know teams are working really tirelessly on exploring and kind of excavating the entire thing, so get excited.
Orvieto is a beautiful Italian city, but relatively recently, an entire network of ancient tunnels built beneath it came to light, known as the Orvieto Underground. It was something that was kept secret for a long time. Orvieto is built on a volcanic rock called tuff, which is relatively soft and easy to carve, and for thousands of years residents had been digging into this rock, creating an extensive network of underground passages and rooms. In ancient times, these tunnels were used for storing wine and olive oil. The cool, stable temperature underground was perfect for preserving stuff. There are also wells and cisterns that were dug to collect and store water. During medieval times, the underground was used more strategically. The tunnels acted as secret escape routes during sieges and invasions, and some of the caves were even used as bomb shelters during World War II. You can visit the underground tunnels today, but only through guided tours.
Next up, we have the tunnels of Chavin De Huantar, located in the highlands of Peru. Chavin De Huantar is a 3,000-year-old temple, which is impressive in and of itself, but of course it has become even more impressive with the discovery of an elaborate tunnel system located beneath the earth of the temple, believed to have been built sometime between 900 and 200 BC. It is believed that the tunnels hiding underneath Chavin De Huantar were built for ceremonial purposes, such as communicating with gods, using incredibly advanced engineering techniques that allowed them to channel water and connect the city to the heart of the temple. Many artifacts have been brought up from the tunnels, including bowls and statues, one of which depicts a hybrid human jaguar figure. The discovery, made in the 1940s, has given archaeologists and historians some great insight into the ancient lives of Peruvian citizens.
One of the coolest places you'll visit in Poland is said to be Wieliczka, salt mines, aka the underground salt cathedral. This is a huge subterranean complex near Krakow dating back to the 1200s. It's a huge rock salt mine. Rock salt at the time was very precious, and over centuries they transformed the mine into this extensive network of rooms, passageways, and tunnels that go more than 1,000 feet underground. Not only is this a massive underground complex, but it's not as utilitarian as you'd expect either. There's amazing artwork to see here. The miners used the salt crystal deposits to create chapels, chandeliers, statues. One of the most impressive features is a detailed replica of Da Vinci's The Last Supper, all carved from salt. The mine operated for a very long time too, centuries. It only stopped producing salt in 2007, so that's about 700 years of operation. Now it's a tourist destination, and from what I've heard, it is a must-see.
Next up, we're going to Italy, because according to archaeologists, there is an entire ancient underground network of tunnels located directly underneath the royal palace of Naples, built in the 1800s by Ferdinand II of Bourbon, the king of the Two Sicilies, as an escape route for monarchs as well as a passageway for military personnel. The tunnels, which spanned all the way from the barracks to the royal palace, started being built in 1853, but just 2 years later, that all came to a halt when an explosion took place in the area due to a political uprising that would eventually lead to the end of the kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Luckily, construction was picked back up shortly after the incident, and the tunnels were completed on May 25th of that same year, 1855. Ferdinand II of Bourbon died in 1859, and in 1861, the kingdom of the Two Sicilies fell. In the 1900s, the tunnels were used as explosion shelters as well as a place to smuggle contraband, until they were closed off. Today, the tunnels have been reopened, and unlike many of the other tunnels on this list, except I believe the one James just mentioned, these tunnels can be visited by the public as part of a tour of the Royal Palace of Naples. If you've been, let me know down below in the comments.
We've all heard of the Colosseum, one of the most famous historical structures in history, the site of countless gladiatorial fights in ancient Rome. It's still around today, one of the most iconic landmarks in the entire world, drawing thousands of visitors each year. But it was only very recently that the tunnels underneath the Colosseum were opened to the public. The massive amphitheater itself is definitely impressive, but the hidden tunnels beneath offer a much deeper look into Roman culture and traditions. These underground passageways were actually where the gladiators would prepare for their fights. It's basically the ancient version of the backstage area of a concert or sports event. For a long time, tourists couldn't access the underground areas, but just in 2021, several of these hidden passageways were restored and opened to the public, which is pretty cool.
And finally, we have possibly my favorite ancient tunnels, the mysterious underground tunnels of Brazil that, no joke, scientists truly believe were created by either giant sloths or giant armadillos. In 2009, a farmer broke through a dry patch of soil into an underground cavity while he was out on the town on his tractor. Researchers were quick to investigate the area, and what they found was, well, pretty insane. An almost 50-foot long tunnel with a diameter of about 6.5 feet. After that, 1,500 more tunnels, including one with branching tunnels that altogether measured in at about 2,000 feet long, were discovered in the area. So, what made them? Well, a geologist by the name of Luis Carlos Weinschutz believes that they are the work of either giant sloths or giant armadillos that lived 10,000 years ago before the mass extinction of megafauna. While scientists are pretty secure in their explanation of what built the tunnels, they're still struggling to figure out why, as the tunnels are much larger than necessary if the animal had intended on using them to escape predators or as shelter in bad weather. Personally, I think the giant animals might have been attempting to create a secret tunnel for two lovers leading to a Mashu, but you know, that's just me.
I'd love to go to on a tour of one of these places and then start spitting facts. Did you know Dernyuku was discovered by a Turkish man chasing a chicken into a hole?
We're so annoying at dinner parties, you guys.
Imagine if we became an actual travel channel and went to all these places and then it was
If you have any other suggestions of things you want us to cover so that we can become even more knowledgeable about the world, let us know down below. I've been your host, Hannah Thompson.
I've been your host, James.